Good evening and welcome to this seminar on the postgraduate programs they offer here at Macquarie University in Security Studies and Criminology. My name is Dr. Adam Lockyer and I'm a Senior Lecturer of Security Studies in the Department of Security Studies and Criminology. I'm also the Postgraduate Coursework Coordinator in the department. What that means is if you've got questions about a master's degree, I'm the guy that you come talk to. So first, let me introduce you to our department. The Department of Security Studies and Criminology began life as the Centre for Policing, Intelligence and Counterterrorism. It was in direct response to the terrorist incidents in Bali and in Jakarta. And there was a realisation that our police, both federal and state, were lacking expertise in counterterrorism. And our centre was set up to help train and supply the skills for these serving officers. Now, over time, what we experienced was that our students were far broader than just these current practitioners. They were often recent graduates, they were often mid-career professionals from a range of different departments, from the Department of Defence through to Foreign Affairs, through to businesses, and even senior people that wanted to come back and get further academic credentials in security studies. So the department evolved, and it evolved in a number of different directions. It, on the one hand, became more academic and research oriented, and now the department applies itself to striking a balance between both academic rigor but also the practical skills that you'll need either in your future job or in your current job. It also broadened in terms of the field in which it both researched and taught. So now we don't just do intelligence and counterterrorism, we do a range of different master's degrees. So this is a really important time, and there's a lot going on in international security, in counterterrorism, in intelligence, in criminology, and in cybersecurity. So if you pick up the newspapers, you turn on the news, you'll be seeing a lot of incidents going on around the world that are related to what we study, what we research, and what we teach. So from North Korea through to the South China Sea, through to the terrorist attacks in Britain, through to the insurgency in Yemen, and there's ongoing cyber attacks going on around the world. So there's a lot going on in this security space. And as you imagine, there's growing need for professionals who can service industries around security studies. So once again, if you pick up newspapers, and I've cut a few headlines from some recent newspapers here about more funding going to the Australian Federal Police, more funding going in cybersecurity in businesses, and more funding going into our intelligence services, ASIO and ATIS. So both government and corporations are spending far more money on good people who can provide expertise in security-related fields. So to respond to this, what we're offering is a range of master's degrees in different areas. So we offer 5 different coursework masters in the Department of Security Studies and Criminology. Our first master's degree is called the Master of Security and Strategic Studies. Our second one is the Master of Intelligence. A third one is in Master of Cybersecurity. A third one is a Master of Criminology. And finally, the 5th one is a Master of Counterterrorism. Now, these 5 master's degrees are all interlinked. There is some crossover. If you choose one master's degree, you will still be able to take electives from the other master's degrees. So it's not as though you're just completely focused in one field at the expense of all others. You do get a well-rounded exposure to these different fields. However, you do also get to specialize in one of these areas. So first off, let's look at the Master of Security Studies and Security and Strategic Studies. The type of units that you'll be studying in this one will be things like geopolitics and geostrategy, strategic thinking, transnational security, and Australia's strategic and defence policy. The type of careers that you could expect to pursue after a Master of Security and Strategic Studies will include things like getting a job in the Department of Defence, either as a grad or as just Australian public servant. You could get a job as a diplomat, as a trend and sales analysis in corporations like Thales and Boeing. So it's not just that you're limited to government jobs. Corporations and businesses would also be open for you to apply to, but you'd be leaning more towards things in defence, security, and strategy. The next master's degree that we offer is a Master of Intelligence. Once again, it follows a similar structure. So the first unit that you'll be taking is critical thought and research design. This is what we call a common core. So it's a common unit across all of our master's degrees. So when you start your program at the Department of Security Studies and Criminology, you'll all be in that one unit together. You'll be able to meet fellow students from across the different master's degrees, and you'll be able to acquire skills in critical thought, critical thinking, and research. It's a good way of bringing everybody up to speed. So some recent grads will be used to finding research and resources using the internet, but people who have graduated and now mid-career may be less familiar with Google Scholar and other research techniques like this. So it's going to bring you up to speed, so you're all starting from a similar starting point, but you'll also be doing more advanced stuff as well, stuff on comparative methods, on some basic quantitative methods, and also not just bringing you up to speed, but also stretching you beyond what you have done in the past. Then you move on to your 4 cores. They all involve 4 cores. Here we have a history unit, or history on intelligence, then intelligence analysis, intelligence theory and practice, and the intelligence community in Australia, before you move on to your capstone, which is the simulation. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. If you're interested in the Master of Intelligence, you might be interested in future careers in ASIO, in ASIS, in the broader Australian intelligence community, such as DIO, OUA, Border Force, or you might be interested in, once again, corporate and business pursuits in AUSTRAC or the ATO. The next Master's is the Master of Cybersecurity. The Master of Cybersecurity is slightly different. It's slightly different because we offer specializations. So a specialization is like a major embedded in the master's degree. So you can do a specialization that's in the Faculty of Arts, which is on cybersecurity analysis. You can do one from the Faculty of Business and Economics, or you can do a major in the Faculty of Science Engineering. So the science engineering is more technical. This is for the hardcore hacking type of cybersecurity. The business specialization is more for businesses and accounting and those type of cybersecurity issues. Whereas the Faculty of Arts, the one that our department teaches, will be more policy oriented. You still get to do some units from other parts, so it's not as though if you're majoring in the policy environment, you won't have to do any of the programming units, but you won't be won't get as detailed or in-depth exposure to the programming compared to those students that would go into the science engineering stream, and vice versa. So it is interdisciplinary. Once again, you will get to move between the different streams, but you won't get the in-depth experience that you would if you chose these other streams. Now, cyber is huge in demand, so there's lots of jobs in government and in business. You open the newspaper and there's a lot of possibilities here to land a job in cybersecurity in a range of different corporations. The next Master's is the Master of Criminology. Once again, it follows a very familiarly structured by this stage. You do your critical thought and research design. You then do your 4 core units. You then do your simulation before you move on to your electives. The core units that you'll be taking are things like advanced criminology theory, applied criminology, crimes of the powerful, and Australia's approach to law enforcement. Now, the type of careers you could look to try to apply for after your Master of Criminology will be things like the Department of Justice, state and federal police like AFP, Border Force, as well as the Attorney Generals and the Department of Justice. Now we have the Master of Counterterrorism, and once again we have the Common Core, the Critical Thought and Research Design, and the 4 Common Cores. Here the Common Cores are terrorism, terrorism dynamics, international policing and counterterrorism, and finally global counterterrorism in the Australian context, before you move on to your simulation and your electives. If you decide to pursue a Master's in Counterterrorism, once again you might be looking at different types of jobs in ASIO, AFP, Border Force, State Police, AFP, an NGO, or the Department of Justice. So I've been talking a lot about this simulation, and the simulation is one of the things that make our programs unique at Macquarie University. So after you've progressed through your Master's degree, we'll do a simulation that combines all your theoretical and practical knowledge you've gained throughout your Master's degree. What will happen is you'll all come together again. So you all began life in the same unit, this critical thought and research design. You then broke away into your cores. You'll then come back together and you'll be all co-taught in the same classroom again. And you'll be grouped around these interdisciplinary groups. So hopefully we'll get a mixture within these groups of criminologists, of intelligence experts, of strategists, of counterterrorism experts, of cybersecurity analysts. So you'll play the role of whoever master's degree that you're enrolled in. So if you're enrolled in the Master of Criminology, you'll be the criminologist. If you're enrolled in the Master of Security and Strategic Studies, you'll be the strategist within your group. So it'll be multidisciplinary, and you'll need to solve problems as they arise in real time. So the simulation might be a crisis in the South China Sea. It might be loose nukes in Central Asia. It might be that there's a terrorist incident in Canberra. Working within your group, so these are often students that you haven't met for very long because they're coming from different backgrounds. You'll need to work together to solve the simulation problem. And the simulation will be run over a day, maybe 2 days, and it will be ongoing. So you'll be making decisions. And at different points in the time, different students will need to step up and take the lead within their groups. So perhaps at some point within the simulation, a piece of intelligence gets introduced into the team environment, and at that point, the student that has got the master intelligence might have to step up and do intelligence analysis of that piece of intelligence, a skill that none of the others in his group may have. So it's going to be dynamic in that way, and be able to bring together all your theoretical knowledge, but also the practical knowledge you've gained throughout your master's degree. So in addition to your core units and your capstone unit, you'll also have an opportunity within your master's to take on electives as well. Now, the electives are a mixture of other units within the department, but also within the faculty as well. So some of the electives you get to choose from are from the other master's degrees that we offer. So if you're enrolled in the Master of Intelligence, perhaps you will be able to take electives from the Master of Security and Strategic Studies, or from Criminology, or from Cyber, etc. You'll then be able to take 2 electives from the wider faculty. So this could be from international relations, it could be from anthropology or sociology or political science. And this is a way of you exploring your broader interests that go beyond just your narrow interests in intelligence or criminology or cyber, etc. Now, that is how all of the masters work except for cyber. Cyber is a little bit different because of these specializations I was talking about earlier. Because of the specializations, it means that we need to structure it slightly differently. And you'll not only be able to take electives from the other master's degrees, you'll also be able to take electives from the other specializations. So we've got a few different boxes you get to choose from. So rather than just two boxes, the department and the faculty, you also get to choose some electives from the other specializations. But otherwise, it follows a fairly similar structure, where you come in, you do the critical thought and research design as your common core, and you'll finish with the simulation where you play the role of the cybersecurity expert. And so this is how it looks. So you'll have the 5 different master's degrees. You have the common core that runs across the top, the critical thought and research design, and that's common to all of them. You then have your first unit. You then have the unit that's in blue. The units that are in blue are quarantine units, and you must be enrolled within that program to do it. The grey units, you're able to mix and match. So you can take those as electives if you're taking another master's degree. And then you do simulation and your 4 electives from the other buckets, from the other master's degree, before you do your the faculty 2 units. So some broader questions about what you need to for admissions. So you need to have a background in the social sciences, the humanities, or a related field. So it's a fairly broad background. If you're from law, you've done undergrad in history, in political science, in sociology, and anything like that, that would be called a cogent background. So you'd be eligible to apply, and you need to have an RPL. You need to have a grade 1 average of 4 out of 7, however that's calculated. So it's I think that's about a credit average in most universities. So if you've got a background in social sciences or the humanities, fairly broadly defined, and in your undergraduate you've got a credit average, you'll cross the threshold for admissions. So that's what we require. If your background is not in the social sciences or the humanities or a later field, perhaps you come from pure mathematics or in science, but you're still interested in our programs, you can still apply, but you would probably apply for what we call the graduate certificate in security studies and criminology. Now, the grad certificate allows you entry. If you get a credit average within your grad cert, you can then transfer after your first semester into one of the master's degrees. So it's not as though if you don't have a relevant background that all paths are blocked off. You just need to enroll in this entry degree, this entry award, which will help you hopefully transfer into the master's degree at a later date. So I'm open to questions. If you have any questions about the master's degree, about admissions, I'm happy now to answer any and all of them. Okay, so the first question here is about the units. So about the simulations. So it asks, I read that PICT 851 and PICT 953, the simulation, are incompatible. So the reason for that is because they're going to be co-taught next year. So you'll be in the simulation program if you take the 851. So you'll all be in there together, and you can't take that unit twice. So that's why they're incompatible. You either need to take picked 851, which is a simulation unit, or picked 953, which is also a simulation unit, but you can't do the two at the same time because they're both the same unit, or they're co-taught together. The next question is, are there any distant learning options? And yes. So all of our units are offered as both internally and external units. So what that means is when you enroll in one of your units, you can say whether or not you want to become as an internal student, which means you'll need to come once a week during semester to class. Now, our classes in the master's degrees are all in the evening, normally between 5 and 7 or 7 and 9, and they're 2 hours per week. Now, if you can't get to university for those 2 hours per week, many of our students are serving members of the Defence Force and they're on deployment. Sometimes our students live in another city, perhaps Brisbane or Melbourne. That's fine. When you come to enroll, you enroll as an external student in all of the units and you get a very similar learning experience. So all of our lectures are recorded online, so you'll get to watch our lectures, and then depending upon the unit, you'll then be able to engage in conversation, debate with the other students online. So everything that we do internally, where it's mirrored externally, it's just at enrollment, at your point of enrollment in each individual unit, you get to choose whether you want to be an internal or an external student. What a lot of our students also do is they mix and match. So perhaps because of work, family commitments, you can only get to campus once a week. That's fine. You enroll as an internal student in one unit and you can enroll as an external student in another unit. So you can still maybe do 2 units per week, but you can mix and match that way. So it's pretty flexible in terms of internal and external enrollment. As a current undergraduate student, are there any cybersecurity electives possible to take in my current degree to get a feel for the content? We do offer, I think, 2 undergraduate units in cybersecurity. Now, whether or not you can apply to take those cyber units in your current program is more about your current program. If you're studying a Bachelor of Arts, for example, I think you can. If you're studying the Bachelor of Security Studies, one of those units is a compulsory unit. So if you're in the Bachelor of Security Studies, you'll automatically do a cyber unit. Or if you're in the Faculty of Arts, I think depending on one of those more flexible programs, you'll be able to pick it up as an elective. Okay, this next question is about attending uni. I think I've already answered that one. Our classes are 2 hours per week, 5 to 7, 7 to 9 on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. I don't think we make you come on Friday night. And after that, you can enroll as an external student if that's inconvenient for you. So this is, I finished an MPIC, so a Master of Policing, Intelligence, Counterterrorism 3 years ago. I'm now interested in the Master of Criminology. Will I get RPL, which is Recognition of Prior Learning? You probably will. So some of the units are similar to those that have been offered before, and so because of that, you might be able to get RPL for some of these units. So when you apply, we'll be able to work that out. This next one is, I've enrolled in the Master of Intelligence, but I'm also quite interested in the Master of Counterterrorism. Could I do both programs? Now, not in 2018, but fingers crossed in 2019. So we're currently trying to get the double masters up off the ground for 2019. So what I would suggest here is if you enroll in the Master of Intelligence and after a year's study, you can then apply for the double masters and then transfer all your units over so you don't waste any time. So fingers crossed, we're working on it. Hopefully the double masters will get up for 2019, but that's still a work in progress. So yeah, my advice would be to start the single masters, and hopefully when the double masters get off the ground, we can move your units across and you get credit for those. Okay, this is a question on how does the Master of Security and Strategic Studies differ from the Master of International Relations? So the Master of International Relations tends to be far more theoretical. So on world politics, it tends to be more historically based. So whereas our program is far more focused on one part of international relations, which is international security, and in particular strategic studies. So international relations includes everything from international political economy through to matters of war and peace. So if in your Masters of International Relations, you'd be studying things on trade deals, on economics, on those type of things as well. Whereas in our Masters, it's far more focused on defence, strategy, international security. However, with that said, if you looked back at some of the earlier slides, some of the electives from the faculty, so you'll be able to take some units within our program from the faculty, and a lot of those are from international relations. So you'll be able to dabble in some of these broader international relations theoretical questions, but for the most part our cores are on things like geopolitics and geostrategy, on Australian defence policy and strategy, on transnational security, and on strategic thinking. So you can see it's far more focused than a much broader international relations degree. So this one's, how many hours per week do you recommend for the Masters on average? Well, that depends on you, because it depends on how many units you decide to enroll in. So a full-time workload is 4 units per semester. So when I'm saying units, they're the courses, right? Now, for each of those units, you'll be required to show up to class for 2 hours per week to a seminar. That's if you're an internal, or the online equivalent. So online discussions, forums, that type of thing, which will vary from unit to unit. In addition to that, you'll need to do your assignments, so your essay writing. Most of our assignments are essays or policy briefs or those type of things. Because we have external students, we don't have internal exams, so there are no exams where you have to sit down and furiously write away on a piece of paper. They're impractical because of our external students. The closest thing we have to a few of those is a few small multiple choice quizzes sometimes, or take-home exams. So you might get the exam question and then you might get a few days to respond. But we can't have exams within our program because of the structure. So you have your assignments, 2 hours per week, and any preparation time as well. So you'll need to do your readings. Normally the readings would be 1 or 2 articles per week in preparation, so you know what you're talking about before you get to class. So that's the workload for each unit. But if you decide to take 1 unit per semester, that's fine. If you decide to take 4, that's fine as well. And it depends upon your other commitments, work, family, etc. Okay, I'm currently enrolled in the current Masters. So the Master of Cybersecurity, Policing, Intelligence and Counterterrorism is there much flexibility on credit towards the new degree, or will only classes of part of the new Masters be counted towards the new degree? No. So if you're currently a student in either the Master of International Security Studies, which is one of our former master's degrees that are ending and we're replacing with these 5 new ones, or the Master of Cybersecurity, Policing, Intelligence, Counterterrorism. Once again, one of the old master's degrees that we're replacing it with next year. You can put in what we're calling an expression of interest. So send the department an email, say, this is who I am. I want to express some interest in transferring from the old master's degree into one of these new master's degrees. But before I make a decision, I would like to know how much academic credit I would get if I decide to pull the trigger. And what we'll do is we'll sit down with your transcript and tick off all the units that you can pull across. Now, if you're 6 months in, there's a good chance that a lot of them will be able to be moved across as either core units or as electives. So you might get a lot of RPL, recognition of prior learning, just brought across, and those units will appear in your new master's degree. The further along you are in your master's degree, often becomes a little more complicated in bringing the units across, and you may not get full credit for all your units. But that's why we allow you to lodge an expression of interest beforehand to get a sense of how much you'll get, whether you get it all, or you get some, or you get very little. Then we'll send that back to you, and then you can make an informed judgment yourself. Whether or not, if you're getting all your credit brought across, then you might just want to fill in the form and go. It's really, really easy to transfer across. When we send back the expression of interest saying how much credit you'll get, we'll attach a form, and basically what you need to do is circle the master's degree that you want to transfer to, sign the form, and the university will do the rest, and next year you'll be in the new masters of your choice. Okay. Okay, so yes, we have internship options available in the masters as well, and there is a masters. There's an internship where they go to. It varies from semester to semester. So every semester we have to reach out and see if what organisations around the place are willing to take interns. But we often get Optus, we get New South Wales Police, sometimes we get a few in Canberra, but because a lot of our students are Sydney-based, it becomes a bit difficult. So we do try to get internships based in Sydney, but we also often have internships around the country too, which if students are external or willing to travel, they can take them up. But it's a range of different organisations, and they change from semester to semester. Hi Adam, my background is in medical science. Just wanted to know what is the graduate certificate called? It's called the Graduate Certificate in Security Studies and Criminology. It's basically the name of our department. The reason why we've called it so, the graduate certificate so broad is because in the grad cert you'll be able to bring in your units from all the different master's degrees. So it's a very broad umbrella type of graduate certificate. But the good thing about that is you'll be able to take those units and transfer them into your master's if you get the credit average in your first semester. Okay, so could you also perhaps explain what a job such as security, counterterrorism, analyst or strategist may specifically involve? So that depends upon the organisation that you eventually get the job in. So if you're looking to be a strategist in, say, Department of Defence, there's a number of different sections within the Department of Defence that works on strategy. Some work on more what you'd call doctrinal issues on Army, Air Force, Navy strategy and doctrine. Some work on more political strategy, so at a higher level again. So it really depends upon that organisation. So, and even within an organisation, it might change depending upon where you're located. So, and you may well move between different sections during your career. So you might work more on the Navy side of things, then you might move across to the Army. After a few years, you might then get moved across to the political side of things. So within one organisation, you'll move around a fair bit. Now, in counterterrorism analysis, an analyst, that would be, depending upon, once again, the organisation, and even these big organisations, that would mean different things within that organisation. So a counter-terrorist analyst within the AFP could mean a few different things, whether or not you're you're attached to a section that's dealing with far-right radicalism, extremism. If you're dealing with other sections of possible terrorists, you'll be in the different sections. It might mean different things in different sections there. At a higher level, you might be looking at policy in terms of on a particular task force, on returning foreign fighters from Syria and the Middle East, what the AFP, how the AFP is going to be dealing with those. So it really depends on what section of these big organisations that you're attached to mean what that term means, and the day-to-day job that you'll be doing will vary a lot depending upon what section you're applied to, and it'll evolve. So you might get a job in the AFP and you'll be attached to one task force, and that'll be dissolved and you'll be moved across onto another. So it's not as though that term will mean the same thing throughout your career. It may actually change from year to year, or even from day to day, depending on how fast things move. Okay. I have a postgrad in law with, sorry, that's not a thing. Okay, so here's what's the last date to enroll. I'm not sure of the exact date, but I think it's early next year. So if you're going to be starting, so the semester 1, 2018, begins in, I think, the last week of February or the first week of March, somewhere in there, and enrolments will be taken until early next year. I'm not sure about the precise date, unfortunately. So here's, I know there used to be a course that combined two, intelligence and counterterrorism. Why is it no longer offered, but offered in two separate programs? So yes, so we had, up until this year, the department offered two main master degrees: a Master of International Security Studies and a Master of Cybersecurity, Policing, Intelligence and Counterterrorism. So 2 different master degrees. They also offer those as a double. Now, what happened was that we asked students why they were taking this alphabet soup masters. So the Master of Cybersecurity, Policing, Intelligence and Counterterrorism. And the response that we got was because of the specializations. So this broad, the MAC picked, had all these different specializations. So there's specialization in cyber, specialization in intelligence or counterterrorism. Why students chose to do this broad masters was because of these specializations. And so what we've done is we've basically taken that umbrella one and moved all those specializations up into their own award programs. So they all exist more or less how they always existed, but now we're offering master's degrees in those different areas that used to only be a specialization. Now, that means that we're offering far more masters than we used to. Instead of 2, we're now offering 5. And in 2018, we're offering them all as single masters. But then hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes to plan, in 2019, the doubles will also be offered. And you'll be able to do doubles in the different combinations. Now, my advice would be, if you are interested in the doubles, to not just hold off until 2019, that you can make a start in one of those different single masters and transfer your credits across to the doubles if and when the masters are offered in 2019. Okay, how will the entry into a distance Master of Cybersecurity work? Now, the different specializations have different criteria about the external offerings. So if you do the specialization in our specialization, so the Faculty of Arts specialization, which is cybersecurity analysis, all those units within that area are offered externally, so it won't be a problem. Now, some of the other areas, however, don't offer external. So the Faculty of Science Engineering, so the more technical stream, not all of those units are offered externally. They need students to come in to teach them the programming necessary. So although the Cyber Masters is offered externally, it's mostly our stream that's the easiest to do externally. The other streams are either not offered or they become difficult. Is there a way to get these slides for what is studied during the different master's programs? I'm not sure how I can get those to you. If you email me directly, I'm happy to send them through. Otherwise, all that information is now available online as well. So if you go onto the Macquarie website, you Google whatever master's degree that you're interested in, and you'll see all the units you need to take, and all the information is there. The website has just been revamped, and it's really good now that you can navigate through, and you can find all the information you need really easily on both what you're going to study in terms of the electives and the cores and what have you, but also about admissions and things as well. It's all really good now. So yeah, log on to the website, Google the master's degree that you're interested in, and take it from there. I'm moving to Melbourne. How can I attend the program being in Melbourne? You enrol as an external in each of the different units. So at the point when you're enrolling each of your different units, you enrol as an external student and you take those units externally. It's really easy now. Okay, is there much focus on group work, and as an external student, how do you participate in the simulation? So it depends upon unit to unit. In my unit, the unit that I teach is the Australian Defence Policy and Strategy unit, and I don't think there's much group work in terms of assessments, like you're all doing individual assessments. The group work that we do is in the seminars, where you might play different roles, you might have different debates, you might go away and break away into groups to have different discussions and then come back. So there is group work in the seminars, but not in terms of assessments. And I think that's fairly typical in across the different units. Now, for the simulation, we've got some software that will allow students to take the simulation externally. But what we're also looking at doing is hopefully having the final simulation, the proper war game, where we'll close up the room and run you through for a day or two, and hopefully have that on a single weekend, which will allow those students who may have never come to campus, who've spent their whole master's degree in Melbourne, for example, but want that last cherry on the top experience to tie their master's degree together and meet their fellow students that they've been talking to online for the last year and a half, to be able to fly in perhaps and have that simulation experience in class across one weekend. So we're looking at different solutions to how we're going to run the simulation. So we'll probably have an internal offering. We might have a condensed offering where externals can do the whole semester externally but only come in for one day, or then maybe have the whole thing external. So we're still working on different solutions, and nothing's been finalised yet. But we are looking at looking at how we're going to run the simulation for the external students. Can I do some theory units in summer to finish the course early? No, most of our units are offered in semester 1 and semester 2. We don't generally offer summer school. Here, do you believe these degrees limit career options to government-only roles, or are there options also available in private organisations relevant to intelligence, strategy, etc.? No, certainly not. I would say that a good, healthy proportion of our students do get eventually find employment in corporations and in businesses, and so increasingly corporations are looking for cybersecurity people. So Telstra, the big banks, they're all really hungry for cybersecurity. They're also hungry for people who have backgrounds in intelligence, in strategy, in those type of areas. But you also have NGOs as well. So a lot of those are working in community engagement, in justice, in those type of things, would look favourably on a Master in Criminology, for example. So you can, by no means would you limit yourself to government, both federal and state. Corporations and businesses would be hungry for graduates, have backgrounds in these type of skills, but also NGOs as well, both domestic NGOs, but also international NGOs. So I'd say that when you are looking to get your career at the end, take a broad view of all the different options that are available to you. Okay, just a couple last questions before we sign off. is the Macquarie University's cybersecurity program recognised around the world, say in the United States and the UK? Yes. So our master's degrees have been approved by the University Senate here, have been approved by the Australian government, and they're proper, full academic programs. And that the master's degree from Macquarie University will hold just as much weight as any master's degree that you're going to get from another Australian university if you travelled overseas to the UK or to the United States. So these are international qualifications that you can take with you if you are looking for careers overseas as well. Okay. That's it. So hopefully I've answered a lot of your questions tonight. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to either email myself or our departmental student advisor. Louise is always there and eager to answer any of your questions about both our undergraduate program or our postgraduate program. So thank you for joining me tonight, and hopefully see you next year. Thanks.